Hey, it's Kaufman is Alive. I look at comic books new and old. Today I'm looking at an old comic book going back 30 years to the Age of Apocalypse. We're looking at X-Men issue number 2 by Marvel Comics. I've been covering every single issue of the Age of Apocalypse, been doing a series on that, so go check all those videos out. I did X-Men number 1 a few months ago, and in that issue, I talked a lot about the artist Steve Skroce in this issue and how he went on to work on the Matrix films, designing the look for Neo, Keanu Reeves' character in the Matrix movies. And I feel like this X-Men character really informed him a lot on the work he did there, because this character is very much like the Chosen One type of a character. And he's even in like the black leather with the jacket. Obviously, it's a bit of a different look than what we'd get with Neo eventually, but very similar. And I just think that's pretty interesting. Steve Skroce did a lot of great work here at Marvel. Wasn't around for very long, but he did some pretty solid work while he was here. This cover's got X-Man on the cover, kind of a team look to the cover here. It almost looks like X-Force or X-Factor in this Age of Apocalypse universe, but this series was Cable and it became X-Man here in the Age of Apocalypse. But we got Toad here, Forge, Brute, and Siren. Although in this universe, her name's been changed to Sonic. Sonique. Or Sonique, I guess maybe is how you would pronounce it. Don't know why they changed her name from Siren, to be honest with you. But every summer's boy needs a redhead. And so in this series, Nate Gray, who is the X-Man, his main squeeze in this is Sonic. So we've got Domino. She's working for Apocalypse. I really like her design here in this universe. This issue opens up with her battling this version of Omega Red. Obviously, he is not Omega Red, but he does have some of the same powers. He's got these giant tendrils that can come out of him, but it looks like they're coming out of his side instead of his hands here. She calls him Rossovich, which is Omega Red's real name, Arkady Rossovich. So I know this is the same character in this universe, but he's definitely got a different look, and he's not Omega Red. He's got a blue color palette to him, and he doesn't have the Omega symbol on his forehead or anything. So a bit different in this universe. And she's looking for information on this telepath. Apocalypse has sent her to find him. She doesn't get any information out of Rossovich, though, and just stabs the sword right through him. We meet Caliban as well as Grizzly, who are all working for Apocalypse here, searching for Nate Gray. Great double splash page to open up. All the Age of Apocalypse books have that double splash page where you got to turn the book sideways to look at it. Then we've got a training session here between Nate Gray and Forge. Like any good X-Men book, it starts out with you thinking they're fighting each other, but it's just a training sequence here. I really love Forge's look in this Age of Apocalypse. We meet some of the other vagabonds that they're with here, including Brute, who was a member of Mr. Sinister's Nasty Boys, and Mastermind, and here's Teresa, who is Siren, but we learn here her name is Sonic. So Forge wants him to learn how to battle without using his powers, and Nate is just like, what's the point? I can pretty much shut anybody down with like the blink of an eye. Want to point out the writer, Jeff Loeb here, who's also the current writer on Batman Hush 2 with Jim Lee, and obviously a legendary career in his own right. And we've got Mike Sellers, La Rosa, Conrad, and Hannah doing the inks. So a bunch of different inkers on this book. And Forge is worried that this character Essex is going to basically be turning Nate to the dark side. So we've got sort of a Star Wars kind of plot going on here where Nate is being pulled in two directions. This character, Essex, showed up at the end of the first issue, and he's kind of a mysterious character. Obviously, if you've read any X-Men books, you know it's Mr. Sinister. But he's trying to get Nate to use his powers, and instead of holding back, actually use his powers for full force here. He gets Nate to learn that he can fly. We get this great double splash page here. I love all the detailed smoke in the background. This looks really great. I wonder who specifically inked this page because it looks awesome. So Essex bringing Nate back to the group here. They've got a fire. Again, they're just like vagabonds traveling as a resistance against Apocalypse, but you can see the dark side that Essex is bringing out in X-Man here in this panel. I really like that. Essex says that there's a factory that they can hit, and it would hurt Apocalypse if they hit it, and Nate's saying it's at least worth checking out, and Forge agrees that they can at least check it out, but they're not going to do any sort of damage to it. He says it's just a recon mission, and then they're going to head back to the base and formulate their next move. This is the kind of stuff that Steve Skroce is really great at, these giant technological machines and backgrounds when he throws stuff like this in the background. We don't get a whole bunch of that in this issue, but we do get this kind of splash page. They come to this factory. They say it's nauseating. There's like a aura of death around it. They break into it. Forge is curious how Essex knows the layout so well. And then we get some more great Steve Skroce artwork here, but they find that this is where they're dumping all of the liquefied human bodies and forming it into this goop to form the Sentinels that Apocalypse uses, called the Infinites. So we see that whole process here. We've seen it talked about in the Factor X series as well, where Beast is doing all of these experiments. We see the pile of bones and bodies here. They see some of the Madri, who are the priests of Apocalypse here. They're a little bit more powerful than the Sentinels. Forge advises that they shouldn't mess with them. But Nate is so overwhelmed by what he's seeing, he just wants to destroy this entire facility while they're here. And an Infinite shows up, discovers them, so Nate takes him out, and it starts a big battle in here. Nate's just trying to take out the entire facility. Nate gets taken out by the Madri, and Essex is kind of confused about how easily Nate was taken out here. But he was just feigning an injury, and then he zaps them with his psychic powers and takes them out. But there's one Madri that lives, so he's going to go tell Apocalypse about everything that's happened. And Forge says, "You've pushed Nate too far," but Essex is just like, what could I possibly have gained at pushing Nate too far? As Forge wants to know what's in it for Essex. So they head back to their little farm hideout here. Sonic's worried that something's changed inside Nate. He says he saw some terrible things, more horrible than you can imagine, and he wants answers. He says, and if Forge and Essex are only willing to spoon feed me like I was some kind of baby, then I'm going to have to find out myself. So he grabs her, and then they psionically or telepathically visit this dead zone, it says, in Westchester. It says no one lives here, no one would want to. That's what the Astonishing X-Men would want you to think. And we see them enter the home of Magneto here. He's talking to his son Charles, who can actually see them. So Magneto turns around and is telepathically, I guess maybe through Charles here, threatens Nate to leave him alone. And then Sonic breaks the psionic link so they can get out of there because she recognizes Magneto. She says he's the most powerful mutant in the resistance forces. And Nate says he wants to know why Forge keeps saying he's destined for greater things, and he thinks Magneto will help him find out why. Brute knew that he recognized Essex earlier from somewhere, and finally he realizes that he was the guy who was experimenting him when Brute was in the pens. Sinister says how unfortunate it appears shapeshifting isn't always infallible. And then, kind of off-screen, we see him kill Brute with the horses just looking on. I really like that. And I like how we've already covered the X Factor issues 1 and 2, and that's where Mr. Sinister disappeared. And then now here we're getting what he's up to, trying to take control of this telepath, Nate Gray, that broke out of his pens. So I keep just accidentally reading these in the correct order, so that's pretty cool. Forge meets with Essex here, and he says it's best if they part ways. And Essex says, how does Nate feel about that? And Forge says, we're leaving Nate out of the equation. He's young and not always aware of the bigger picture. And Essex says, Forge, how can you be content with a single lump of coal when I can show you the diamond we have at hand? And that's when Domino and her group show up, looking obviously for Nate Gray here. And it says in the next issue, Essex is revealed, as well as the death of a friend, which I think we might have seen that off panel there when Brute got it from Essex. So pretty cool issue. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I have started a new channel as well covering wrestling. I did a review of SummerSlam Night 1 earlier today and my predictions as well for Night 2. There should be some links up on the screen right now, so go check those out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Go read comics.